Chief Ibuka was a man everyone in the city knew. If you mentioned his name, people would nod with respect. He owned big companies, drove flashy cars, and had houses in different states. His clothes were always neat, his wristwatch shiny, and his voice deep and commanding. But for all his power and money, there was one thing Chief Ibuka didn't know how to do. He didn't know how to be a father. His wife, Madame Ijeoma, wasn't much different. She looked like a queen. Her makeup was always perfect, her dresses expensive, and her perfume strong enough to fill a room before she even entered it. People always said, "That woman is living the life." But Madame Ijeoma didn't know what her son's favorite food was. She didn't even know which class he was in at school. Their only child, Chuka, was just 11 years old. But anyone who looked into his eyes would think he was older. Not because he was tall or strong, no. It was because his eyes looked tired. Not the kind of tired from running or playing. This one came from a kind of sadness no one could explain. Chuka lived in a big mansion, but it was the loneliest place you could imagine. The house had 10 rooms, a swimming pool, a garden, a game room, and even a home cinema. But there was no laughter in it. No sound of a boy running through the corridor. No giggles. No shouting. Just silence. Cold, heavy silence. Most days, Chuka sat alone in his room, playing with his toys, not because he loved them, but because they were all he had. His parents were always away, either in a meeting, on a trip, or attending one party or the other. Sometimes, when he heard their cars pull into the compound, his heart would race with hope. Maybe today they'd sit with him. Maybe today they'd ask how his day went. But by the time they entered the house, they were either on the phone or too tired to talk. One evening, Chuka walked into the living room. His father was there, sitting with his legs crossed, scrolling through his phone. "Daddy," Chuka said softly. Chief Ibuka looked up for a second. "Yes, I wanted to show you the drawing I made today," Chuka said, holding up a piece of paper. Chief Ibuka nodded, not even looking at it. "That's good, my son. Keep it up." "But you didn't see it," Chuka said, stepping closer. Chief Ibuka sighed and looked at his watch. "Chuka, I have a very important call coming. We'll look at it later. Okay?" Chuka nodded quietly and walked away. The drawing fell from his hand to the floor, but no one noticed. Later that night, in her bedroom, Madame Ijeoma was doing her makeup even though she wasn't going out. "Why is Chuka always so moody these days?" she asked, brushing her face with powder. "He's growing. Boys can be strange at that age," Chief Ibuka replied from the bed. "I don't like it. His teachers called again last week. They said he's not talking much in class, that he's always drawing dark things," she said. "And what did you tell them?" he asked. "I told them he's fine. He just misses us." Chief Ibuka chuckled. "Misses us? But we live in the same house." "No, Ibuka," she said seriously. "We are always working. Maybe he's lonely." Chief Ibuka paused for a moment. "So what do you want us to do? Quit our jobs and play Ludo with him every day?" "I didn't say that," she replied sharply. "But maybe we should get him something. Something that can keep him company when we're busy." Chief Ibuka frowned. "Like what? A video game? He already has 5. "No, I'm thinking a dog." "A dog?" Chief Ibuka raised his brow. "Yes, a dog. Something living. Something that can respond to him. Maybe it'll help." Chief Ibuka thought for a moment. Not a bad idea. But I don't want a puppy that will be peeing all over my rug. Then we get a big one. A strong one. Something that won't need too much training." They both agreed. The next morning, Madame Ijeoma called a popular dog breeder in the city. "Hello, good morning. I'm calling about a dog for my son," she said. "Good morning, Ma," the breeder responded. "Yes, we have both puppies and adult dogs available. May I ask how old your son is?" "He's 11, she said. "Ah," the breeder said softly. "Then I would strongly recommend a puppy. Children and adult dogs don't always mix well. Puppies grow with them. They learn together." "No," Madame Ijeoma interrupted. "I don't have time to start training a puppy. We want an adult dog. Something mature and calm." "But Ma," I said an adult dog. When can you deliver? The breeder hesitated, then replied, I can send one this evening. Good. Send your best one. Big and healthy. That evening, the dog arrived in a big cage. He was huge, black and brown, strong legs, sharp eyes, and ears that stood like antennas. His name was Shadow. Chuka stood at the window, watching as the driver and a security guard brought the cage into the compound. His heart beat fast. He didn't know whether to be happy or scared. He had never had a dog before. Madame Igioma walked into his room with a smile. Come downstairs, Chuka. We have a surprise for you. He followed her quietly. When they got to the living room, Chief Ibuka was already there, admiring the dog from a distance. Wow, he said. This one looks like a soldier. This is Shadow, the breeder said. He is loyal and obedient, but he needs time to adjust to new people. He's beautiful, Madame Igioma said. Isn't he, Chuka? She asked, turning to her son. Chuka nodded slowly. He wasn't sure how to feel. Go on, Chief Ibuka said. Touch him. He's your new friend. The breeder quickly added, Please don't rush the dog. Let him get used to the environment first. But no one listened. They were too busy feeling proud of their choice. That night, Chuka sat at the dining table, pushing his food around with a fork. Shadow was lying in a corner, watching every move silently. Chuka, eat your food, Madame Igioma said. I'm not hungry, he replied. But you've hardly touched your rice, she said. I don't want it. Let him be, Chief Ibuka said, sipping his drink. He has a dog now. He'll be fine. After dinner, Chuka went to his room, but he didn't sleep. He sat by his window, looking at the moon, thinking. Shadow was still downstairs, chained near the back door. Something felt strange to Chuka. The house was quieter than usual. The silence was louder. Even with the dog, something still felt empty. Later, he tiptoed downstairs. Shadow saw him coming and stood. Chuka stopped a few steps away, nervous. Hi, he said softly. My name is Chuka. Shadow didn't move. His eyes followed Chuka's every step. I don't have friends, Chuka continued. Everyone is too busy for me. He sat on the floor near the chain, not too close, but just enough to feel like he wasn't alone. I hope you don't leave me too, he whispered. Shadow sat back down, still watching, still silent. Far upstairs, Chief Ibuka was already snoring, and Madame Igioma was on her third phone call of the night. No one knew their son was sitting on the cold floor, talking to a dog. No one knew what he truly needed wasn't a pet, but a parent. And as the moonlight touched the boy's face, and the dog's eyes stayed fixed on him, something cold moved through the house. Not from the breeze, not from the dog, but from a deep, empty space where love should have been. The next chapter would begin before morning. The next morning came slowly, like a sad song. The sun rose, but the house still felt cold. The kind of cold that didn't come from the weather, it came from inside. The quiet kind of cold that made even warm tea taste bitter. Chuka didn't sleep much that night. He had gone back to his room around midnight. He had left Shadow outside, chained near the kitchen door. But even in his bed, Chuka didn't feel safe. He couldn't stop thinking about the way Shadow looked at him. Not with hate, not with fear, just that long, deep stare that never blinked. By morning, Chuka was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at nothing. The housemaid, Auntie Ifunanya, came to knock gently on his door. Oga Chuka, good morning she said, her voice soft. Good morning, Chuka replied without looking at her. I've set your bath. Come and eat, Baiko. You need to go downstairs. I'm not hungry, he said quietly. Auntie Ifunanya stood at the door, watching him with sad eyes. She had worked in the house for almost 4 years. She had seen Chuka grow from a small boy who used to run around with toy planes to this quiet boy who hardly spoke and hardly smiled. She wanted to say something. She wanted to hug him, but it was not her place. She was just the maid. Instead, she turned and left. Downstairs, Madame Igioma was sitting in the living room, already dressed, scrolling through her tablet. Her heels clicked against the marble floor each time she crossed her legs. Chief Ibuka was in his study, already talking on the phone. "Babe," she called out. "Did you check on Chuka this morning?" "No, not yet," Chief Ibuka replied from the study. "I've been on a call since 6. He didn't eat last night. I'm beginning to think something is really wrong. He has a dog now, doesn't he? Give it time. He'll come around." "But what if he doesn't?" she asked, dropping her tablet. "What if we made a mistake?" Chief Ibuka stepped out of his study, phone still in hand. "You're overthinking again. The boy just needs to adjust. That dog is strong. It will protect him. It will teach him courage." "It's not about courage, Ibuka. It's about attention. That dog can't talk to him, can't hug him. It can't understand when he's sad. But we don't have time to sit and babysit him all day," he said, raising his voice. "Or should we cancel our businesses and stay home singing lullabies?" "I didn't say that," she snapped back. "But I know what I see in his eyes." "Then see less and think more," he said sharply. "We're doing our best. Don't make it look like we're bad parents." There was silence in the room. The dog barked outside. Just once. Loud and sharp. Both parents turned to the window. Shadow was standing, tail still, ears high. Chuka came down slowly a few minutes later. He didn't look at his parents. He walked straight to the back door where Shadow was chained. "I want to feed him," he said, still not making eye contact. Auntie Ifunanya came out with a bowl of meat and placed it near the dog. Chuka knelt beside it, gently pushing the bowl closer. Shadow didn't move. "Eat," Chuka whispered. Shadow stared at him for a while before sniffing the meat. Then slowly he began to eat. Chuka sat there, just watching him. "Good boy," he said under his breath. From the living room, Madame Igioma watched her son through the window. For a moment, she felt a little hope. Later that day, Chuka tried to sit closer to Shadow. The dog didn't growl. He didn't bark either. He just kept staring, calm, firm, unreadable. Chuka picked up a stick and threw it far into the grass. "Go and bring it," he said, pointing. Shadow didn't move. "I said go," Chuka repeated. Still nothing. Chief Ibuka chuckled from his seat. "The dog is not a robot. You need to train him." "But you said he was trained already," Chuka replied. "Yes, trained to protect, not to fetch sticks like a clown." Madame Igioma stood and walked over. "Chuka, maybe you should give him time. He's still trying to understand you." "I thought he was supposed to help me," Chuka said quietly. "He will," she replied, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Just be patient." Chuka looked at her hand on his shoulder. It had been a long time since she touched him like that. But before he could say anything, she was already walking away. That night, something strange happened. Chuka was in bed, turning from side to side. He wasn't comfortable. His chest felt heavy. He wasn't sure why. He stood up and walked to the window. Shadow was still outside, chained near the door, watching the house. Chuka didn't like the way the house felt. It was too quiet, too stiff. He wished someone would call his name. He wished his parents would knock on his door just to say goodnight. He tiptoed downstairs again. This time, he opened the door and walked slowly to Shadow. The dog stood immediately, body alert. "It's okay," Chuka said. "It's just me." Shadow didn't move. Chuka sat on the floor, pulling his knees to his chest. "I don't like this house," he whispered. "I don't even like school. Everyone thinks I'm weird. But I'm not. I'm just tired." Shadow looked at him, then slowly sat too. "You don't talk, but that's okay. At least you don't shout or walk away when I speak." The dog blinked once. His ears twitched. His body stayed still. "I wish you were a person," Chuka said, smiling a little. "Then maybe I wouldn't feel so alone." Minutes passed. The air was cold, but Chuka didn't move. He sat there, talking to the dog about everything. How he hated the silence, how he hated pretending to be okay, how he wished someone would just listen. Far upstairs, the house was quiet again. His parents were asleep. The lights were off. Nobody knew that their son was outside in the cold, pouring his heart to an animal. In the morning, Chief Ibuka came downstairs, yawning. "Where's that boy?" he asked. "He's in his room," Auntie Ifyinanya said. "He came in early this morning. Did he eat last night?" "No. He just drank water and slept." Chief Ibuka shook his head. "This boy will give us a problem one day." "You mean more than the problem we already have?" Madame Igioma said, walking down the stairs. Her face was tired. "I have a flight this afternoon," he said. "Make sure the driver is ready." "I'm going to the office too," she added. "We have a board meeting by 11. So who's watching Chuka?" "He's not a baby. He'll be fine." "He has the dog," Chief Ibuka said, grabbing his briefcase. That was the plan. That was always the plan. Let the dog keep him company. Let the dog fill the space that their love could not reach. But that plan was never enough. Later that evening, after school, Chuka returned home and walked straight to the dog. He wasn't scared anymore. He didn't even pause this time. He sat near the dog and leaned his back against the wall. "I think you're the only one listening to me now," he said. Shadow looked at him, tail slightly wagging for the first time. "You want to come inside?" Chuka asked. He looked around. No one was watching. He walked to the chain and slowly unhooked it. Shadow stood up, muscles tight, body ready. "Come," Chuka said. The dog followed. Together, they walked through the back door, into the quiet house. The first few steps were slow. Chuka didn't want to make noise. He didn't want anyone to stop him. Shadow's claws tapped softly against the tiled floor as he walked beside him. They entered Chuka's room. "This is my room," Chuka said proudly. "It's not big, but it's mine." He sat on the bed. The dog sat on the floor. "You can sleep here if you want," Chuka said. "I'll tell them you were cold." Shadow didn't move. Chuka stood and picked a soft blanket from the cupboard. He laid it on the floor. "You can lie on this." Shadow sniffed it and then finally lay down. Chuka smiled. That night, Chuka finally slept before midnight. The dog didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just stayed there, watching, breathing, guarding. But in the silence, something still didn't feel right. The house was calm, but the air was heavy again. The kind of air that makes your chest feel tight even when everything looks normal. And deep inside Chuka's heart, something was still unsettled. He thought the dog could fix the emptiness. But what he needed wasn't paws or fur or growls. He needed love. Real love. And no matter how loyal Shadow was, love wasn't something a dog could give in full. But the boy didn't know that yet. And the house didn't know what was coming next. Because the next morning, everything would change. The sun was just beginning to rise when the scream broke through the silence of the house. It was sharp, loud, and it didn't sound like anything anyone had heard before. "Hey, ha ha ha," came from upstairs, from Chuka's room. Auntie Ifyinanya dropped the mop she was holding and ran up the stairs without thinking twice. "Jesus, what is that?" She pushed open the door so hard it hit the wall behind it. What she saw next made her freeze. Her hand covered her mouth. Her legs shook. Blood. Jesus. Blood. Chuka's body was lying on the floor beside the bed. His white shirt was soaked in red. His small hand was stretched toward the bed like he had been reaching for something. His eyes were half open. His lips were dry. And beside him was Shadow. The dog stood just a few feet away, body stiff, ears up, blood around his mouth, and a low growl rumbling from his throat. He didn't move, but his eyes followed every step Auntie Ifyinanya made. She screamed again and ran out of the room. Her voice echoed down the stairs as she yelled, "Madam! Madam! Come! Come quickly! Something has happened!" Madame Igioma had just finished putting on her earrings when she heard the noise. She rushed out of the room, almost tripping on her heels. "What is it? What happened?" "Chuka! Madam, it's Chuka!" She didn't wait to ask questions. She ran up the stairs, holding her wrapper tightly as she moved. When she entered the room and saw her son on the floor, she dropped to her knees. "No, no, no, Chuka, wake up. Wake up, please." She shook his body. His head dropped sideways. His small hand slid off her lap. The blood stained her clothes. Ibuka! She screamed from the top of her lungs. Ebuka-ea! Chief Ibuka was in the study downstairs, talking on the phone when he heard her. He threw the phone away and dashed up the stairs. What is it? What's going on? His wife was on the floor, holding Chuka's body, crying uncontrollably. The dog stood beside them, still growling low. Ibuka's eyes widened. What happened here? The dog killed him. Madame Igioma shouted. You brought this thing into our house and now our son is dead. No, 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 no. It can't be, Ibuka said, moving back slowly, as if the walls were closing in. The security guard and the driver rushed in. They stared in shock. Should we carry the boy? One of them asked in a low voice. Call the hospital, Ibuka shouted. Call somebody. Do something. Auntie Ifunanya quickly dialed the ambulance number, her hands shaking so badly the phone almost fell. Madame Igioma was now rocking back and forth, holding Chuka's head on her lap, crying like she had lost half of her soul. I told you we shouldn't get an adult dog. I said it, but no, you wanted something strong, something mature. Now look, Ibuka was sweating all over. He wiped his face, even though tears were falling already. I didn't know it would end like this. Shadow, still standing, didn't move closer, but his growl was softer now. His tail was no longer stiff. It wagged slightly, slow and low. Someone should take that dog away before it kills somebody else, Madame Igioma shouted. The security guard stepped forward, holding a long stick. Should I beat it first? He asked. Don't beat it here, Ibuka snapped. Just lock it up in the cage. The guard moved carefully toward Shadow, but the dog didn't attack. He walked slowly toward the door and followed the guard out, quietly, like he understood everything. The ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedics rushed upstairs, but it was too late. I'm sorry, one of them said softly. He's gone. No, 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 Madame Igioma whispered, still holding her son. He just needs air. He needs rest. Just take him to the hospital. He will wake up. Please. But the paramedics only exchanged looks. There was nothing left to do. They gently carried Chuka's body and covered it with a white cloth. Madame Igioma cried louder, like her voice was trying to chase death away. Ibuka sat in the corner, hands over his head, eyes filled with pain. The news spread fast. By noon, almost everyone in the neighborhood had heard. Reporters came with cameras. The gate was filled with people talking, whispering, and pointing fingers. Did you hear? That rich man's son? Mauled by their own dog. I is so sad. That's why you don't play with animals. The police came later to ask questions. They took pictures. They wrote reports. One of the officers stepped aside to speak with Chief Ibuka. Sir, was the dog aggressive before this happened? No, Ibuka replied weakly. It was quiet, calm. Did your son have any injuries before? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore, he said, shaking his head. Another officer asked Madame Igioma some questions too, but she didn't answer. She just kept staring at the empty staircase, as if Chuka was going to come down at any moment and tell her it was all a bad dream. The officers took Shadow away in a van. The neighbors watched as the dog was led away. He's going to be put down, one officer said. It's the procedure. After a fatal attack, the dog has to be put down. Later that evening, the house was even quieter than usual, the kind of quiet that made your ears ring. Ibuka sat in the living room, hands still shaking. Madame Igioma was lying on the couch, eyes swollen, hair scattered, voice gone from crying. I can't believe this, she said in a weak voice. I can't believe this is how it ends. We failed him, Ibuka replied, barely able to speak. I should have listened. I should have stayed home more. I should have hugged him more. Ibuka didn't say anything. He just closed his eyes and leaned his head on the wall. Auntie Ifunanya came in quietly and placed a small book on the table. What's this? Ibuka asked. It's Chuka's diary, she said softly. I found it in his drawer. Madame Igioma quickly picked it up. Her hands trembled as she opened the pages. Her eyes scanned the words. She began to read out loud. I don't think anyone notices me anymore. Sometimes I wish the walls could talk. At least they would hear me. I'm not angry. I'm just tired. Maybe Shadow will understand me. Maybe he'll bite me hard enough so they'll finally look at me. Madame Igioma dropped the book. Her hands flew to her mouth. Tears burst from her eyes again. No. Oh God. Oh God. Ibuka stood slowly and picked up the diary again. He flipped through more pages. They don't see me. They only see their phones, their meetings, their money. Maybe if I'm gone, they will remember I was here. He dropped the diary. His chest was rising and falling fast. His eyes were red. Why didn't we see this? He asked in a whisper. Why didn't we look? The maid stood in the corner, wiping her eyes. I tried to talk to him, she said. I tried, but I'm just the maid. I didn't want to cross the line. They all stood there, silent, broken, empty. The dog was gone. The boy was gone. And all they had left was a few blood-stained clothes, a white blanket, and a diary filled with pain they never saw coming. And yet, even with all that, something still didn't add up. The police came back the next day with results from the hospital. The lead officer entered with a file. We have the autopsy report, he said. Ibuka and Igioma sat up. The officer opened the file and looked at them. There's something strange, he said. Your son didn't die from dog bites. What? They both said at once. There were bite marks, yes, but none of them were deep enough to kill. His actual cause of death was internal bleeding. Blunt force trauma. Something hit him hard. Maybe he fell. But we saw blood, Madame Igioma said, confused. Yes, the officer replied, but not all of it was from the bites. The doctor believes the dog may have scratched him after he collapsed. Maybe trying to wake him. They stared at each other, speechless. You mean, the dog didn't kill him? Ibuka asked slowly. We can't say for sure, but from what we see, the dog may not be the attacker. He may have tried to help. The house went silent again. Madame Igioma held her head in her hands. So we blamed the dog, when all along it wasn't even him? It's possible your son was already in pain before the dog reacted, the officer said. No one spoke after that. No one moved. The truth had become even more painful than the lie they believed. Because now they knew. The dog was not the enemy. The real enemy was their absence. The chapter ends with the room still and heavy as if the air itself was grieving. And outside, far away in a small cage, Shadow lay quietly, staring at the empty space in front of him, waiting for a boy who would never come back.